On today's show, Laura Heywood interviews
from the archives, Tony-nominated actor and my friend, Nick Cordero. Hi, I'm Laura Heywood, and this is a special episode of Laura Heywood Interviews. My friend Nick is sick. He's very sick, in fact. He's fighting for his life in critical condition in the ICU as a result of COVID-19. Nick has a 10-month-old baby. His wife is understandably distraught, and they are asking everyone everywhere to pray, whatever that looks like, for Nick's recovery. I met Nick Cordero in 2014 when he was playing Cheech in the musical version of Bullets Over Broadway, for which he was nominated for a Tony Award. 2 years later, we became legitimate friends after I interviewed him in the Build series session you'll hear today. He was starring in the iconic role of Sonny in A Bronx Tale, the musical, written by and inspired by the life of Chazz Palminteri. With Nick so very much on my mind right now and in the hearts of the whole Broadway community, I'm reaching back to our interview as part of my own prayer process. Please keep Nick and his family in the forefront of your minds, along with the families of everyone suffering from this horrible pandemic. To all of first responders, healthcare professionals, and essential workers, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. To everyone listening, stay safe, stay healthy, and please stay home. To Nick and his wife Amanda and their baby Elvis, my heart is with you. Here is my 2016 interview with the great Nick Cordero. Welcome to Build.
Thank you, Laura. Nice to be here.
And congratulations on A Bronx Tale, the musical. This show is so fantastic.
I'm glad you like it. Thank you. You were there last night.
I was there last night for the third time, and it just keeps getting better.
Thank you very much. We're having a good time at the Long Acre.
I spent a lot of time, last night I went specifically to watch you. So even when someone else stepped into the spotlight, I was like getting a sense of who this Sonny character really is. Yeah. For people who might not be familiar with A Bronx Tale, or people who might be aware of previous incarnations of it, talk about the musical and what your role is.
Well, A Bronx Tale is about this kid growing up in the Bronx in the 1960s, and he is sort of coming of age, and he's got his father at home who's teaching him how to be a good man, and he lives next door to this gangster hangout run by myself. I play Sonny, who is like the capo of the neighborhood, and he, as a child, witnesses a murder on the street, and committed by myself, and sort of tells the cops that it wasn't me. And so that endears this kid to me, and I take him under my wing, and I show him sort of the darker side of life, and sort of guide him through his young adulthood. And that's what it's about, basically.
It's about this relationship.
Yeah.
Almost like a father-son bond.
That's right, yeah. It's about this kid dealing with like the devil and the angel on his shoulder and deciding what kind of man he wants to be. And I think Sonny is a guy who is at a point in his life where he may have made some, not so great decisions, or like, he went toward the dark instead of the light. And he's coming to an age where, he's sort of feeling the repercussions of that, and he sees this kid as a redemptive figure in his life, so he can kind of teach him what he wished that he had learned at his age. So
before you speak in this show, you kind of loom on the stage. You have a couple of scenes where you don't have any lines, but we can't help but have our eyes.
It's a great way to meet him. Yeah, it's really, I don't mind playing it at all, that's for sure.
Your physical presence, you're a very tall guy, but I've also noticed Sonny has a very specific posture.
Yeah.
Shoulders back, chest out,
yeah.
Kind of leading with the chin. How did you develop that?
Well, I think the clothes informed that quite a bit. We have William Ivy Long designed our suits, and they're made by Gilberto suit makers here in Midtown, some of the best. And I don't know, the way they just kind of hung, I get to wear these gorgeous shark skin suits, and it just sort of, it's the way that his power is sort of soft power, in the sense that he doesn't have to do a lot to exert. Like you said, I'm taller than most of the people on stage, all the people on stage. And so it's really just a case of, letting the grimace and the posture do the talking. And then when he does speak, it's more effective.
That's right. He has these lines that you can tell he's kind of cultivated from his lessons. He's a very... kind of, for a guy who spends all his time in one neighborhood, he's a very worldly dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been to prison many times, and while in there, he read a lot of books.
Yeah, they say, I got sent away to college a few times.
And in there he learned about philosophy and Machiavelli and that's sort of where he got his education.
So there's a great song in Act 2 about Nicky Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Did you read up? Did you go dig deep for character development and learn about this love-fear dichotomy that they talk about?
Yeah, I did actually. I had the book in my script the whole ride, and it was informative. It taught me a lot about, it showed me a bit about maybe where he came from and how he came to make the decisions he made as a young man. So yeah, I absolutely read up on Machiavelli, who I had never read up on before.
Yeah. So this is an autobiographical tale with a few tweaks by Chazz Palminteri.
Yeah.
It started as a one-man show that he was doing out in L.A., and then a movie was made, and then Chazz brought it to Broadway as a one-man show, and now it's a musical. Yeah. But Sonny is not based on one character or one person from his life. Is that correct? That Sonny's sort of a conglomeration?
That may be true. He's told me that there was a guy that he had in mind as Sonny, but Sonny's not his real name, and he refuses to tell me this guy's real name for my own safety, apparently. But
well, he definitely is like Cordero, the character based on Chazz. Is
definitely, his real name is Cordero. His father was a bus driver and a saxophone player, and his mother, was named Rosina. And a lot of the characters, like the wise guy characters that you meet in my clubhouse,
those guys
actually existed and were very nefarious, and he's got great stories about those guys and the neighborhood.
Those guys, that's like Frankie Coffee Cakes and Jojo the Whale.
Tony 10 to 2.
Yep. And they all have these funny descriptions of like how they got their names, and there's this, I guess it's a design element or a directorial element where when we meet them, they all do mugshot pose.
Yeah.
They do forward-facing and a profile, and then they just go back into life. And I think it's such a clever, quick way to determine, tell the audience, these guys are straight-up criminals.
Yeah, Jerry Zaks. That's a Jerry Zaks classic right there. We were all in the studio being like, oh, that's how we're going to meet these guys, and everyone. It was a great day. Yeah,
so two famous directors on board. Jerry Zaks, who did Chazz's show, and, of course, Robert De Niro.
Mm-hmm.
I walked into the theater last night, and the guy behind me, who was kind of like a tough guy type himself, was like, where's Bobby De Niro? He hanging out around here tonight?
I'm sure there's a lot of those guys who come in expecting him to just be hanging out, but Bob De Niro's got a big career, and he's a busy guy, so he's elsewhere, but he's left his mark on stage for sure.
Well, and there are a lot of other very important people coming to see the show. The second time I saw it, I was sitting across the aisle from Paul McCartney.
I know.
Yeah.
That was a big day.
Who else has come that you've been excited to meet?
Jerry Springer. No, there's been some great people. We've been very blessed to have a lot of, Broadway luminaries and, great people have come to the show.
There are so many incredible Broadway homages in this show. I was noticing the cross-section of the audience. There were these sort of tough guys. You could tell that they'd brought their families because they'd seen the movie and they loved the story and maybe they identified with their own history.
They say that the lineup of the bathroom looks like the cast of A Bronx Tale. So they're all coming.
Yeah, but then you also have the musical theater geeks like me who love, you have this, probably my favorite number in the show is your first big song, which is called Roll 'Em.
Yeah.
Which to me reads like a love letter to Guys and Dolls, to the Craps shooting in Guys and Dolls, but without being derivative.
Yeah,
it just
definitely inspired by that, but it's also like a stage version of the great scene in the film.
Yeah,
which is when he sort of really starts to see what this kid, I think him not fingering Sonny in the lineup gets him in the door, but then once he starts, adapting to the lifestyle, and that's what that Roll 'Em scene is about, is you get to see this kid sort of realizing that he's got a taste for this kind of life as well, and he likes the finer things in life.
Did you dig deep either with Chazz or on your own and create a backstory for Sonny? Because he's a pretty mysterious guy, and I last night couldn't stop thinking about this one part where they're talking about love, where Cordero, who Sonny calls C, comes to him and says, I met a girl and I need advice, and there's another great musical number about this one could be one of the great ones.
Yeah.
And C says, did you have three great ones, Sonny?
Yeah.
And you say...
I said almost once, and then that's a great scene. It's a great opportunity to play. She's describing a scene where he comes and he's just met this girl at high school, and but she's a black girl, which at that time is obviously very controversial, and he doesn't know what to do. And so I'm telling him that you only get three great women in your life, so don't let this one go. It's a great song by Alan Menken and Glenn Slater called One of the Great Ones, and it's a great opportunity to see Sonny reveal that he's cared for this woman, before in his life. And, it's a great opportunity to show him as a human being because, people tend to think of a gangster as a sort of a two-dimensional tough guy who, has never had a feeling in his life. But Sonny has. He's got a bit of a heart.
Yeah, and he's had to deal with some major sacrifice.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is, do you have a specific story in mind for him? Have you created a backstory about who this woman was, what their history was, where she is now?
It's honestly, I like to leave it a bit of a mystery. I do. I get that question a lot. Did Sonny date Rosina? Because Rosina is the woman on the scaffolding who, he's sort of reminiscing about. And I sort of like to leave it up to the audience's interpretation, In my own mind, I suppose that I'm drawing from experiences in my own life, probably, just to make it an authentic moment. But yeah, I don't really have, I don't have a backstory. The script is so good, the character of Sonny is so well written that, everything he says is just enough to sort of get you to the next place. So
he also says it in this gruff voice.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like worried for you last night because I was like, oh my gosh, he's projecting so much, and like, is it hurt? Do you have to do special warm-ups? How do you not hurt your voice talking in that gruff grumble?
It's honestly. It's almost like a Gregorian sort of like two-tone thing that I can do with my voice. After theater school, I was in a rock band for 5 years, and we had a pretty busy schedule, and I would have to sing a lot when it hurt. So I think over time, I just sort of figured out how to do it and place it well. And that's just sort of what came out. It was never really a conscious decision. I sort of, because Sonny, I don't think really sounds like this.
No.
And I wanted the job, so so I had to adapt, and that's just what came out.
And he also has a different accent than you. Did you guys study a specific? Did you bring in people from the Bronx and to talk to you and get their? Because you can't accidentally do a New Jersey accent or a Queens accent. I've always loved accents.
I always played around with them when I was a kid, and I watched a lot of those movies growing up. So kind of by osmosis, maybe it was ingrained in me somehow. But just spending time with when I was doing Bullets Over Broadway, I had a similar accent, and I spent a ton of time with Vinny Pastore, who played my boss. We became very fast friends. The first day of the reading, I didn't even have the job yet, and he was the first guy I met. And we bonded instantly, and he's got the thickest Bronx accent, you've ever heard. Some people don't understand him, but he became like family to me, and that was, he helped me sort of immerse myself in that culture. He was the first one to take me to Arthur Avenue and meet all those characters up there and go to those great shops and have the food. And so he was an early entree into that world, and Chazz only continued.
Are you still in touch with Vinny?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You guys are
all
buds?
The time. Yeah.
That's awesome.
His band is playing, the Gangster Squad. There you go, Vin. Shout out. Gangster Squad, look for them. They're all over.
I'm so glad you mentioned Bullets Over Broadway, for which you were Tony nominated.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You have done so many great, incredible roles on Broadway. I mean, of course, Waitress, which is still running very strong. You originated the role of Earl.
Mm-hmm. Great show. I love that show.
Yeah, me too. I did an interview here with Jesse and Sarah, Jesse Mueller, who plays the lead, and Sarah Bareilles, who wrote it and is going to be taking over the lead. And I could barely keep it together. I love that show so much.
There's a lot of talent on one stage there.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent across the board on Broadway right now. Have you had the chance to see any other shows?
Miss Saigon I saw in the West End, so not this production, but the same production overseas. What else have I seen recently? Not a ton. I mean, we've been open since December, so I saw Dear Evan Hansen, which was fantastic. But other than that, I've been working my own gigs. So.
You still playing rock music?
Yeah, I am. I have a band. I have a rock and roll band.
What's your band called? You don't go plugging other people's bands without plugging your own.
We're called Other Courage, and we're about to release some new material in the next month or so, like a live, we set up in a live environment and shot it with multi-cameras and recorded it live to tape, so that'll be coming out in the next month. And it's exciting. I love it. It's part of, why I perform. I've done it as long as I've done theater, so.
Yeah, cool. And I know you're a Canadian guy.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to see Come From Away, which is
I've heard.
Canadian story about
I'm
Americans.
very proud. I heard Justin Trudeau was...
Yeah, he was there, I think, last night or the night before.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. How did you get started in musical theater?
It's something that I always, I guess, wanted to do. I learned how to sing doing like chore, like it was my job to vacuum the whole house. So that protected my parents from me learning how to sing. And I was a big fan of like Michael Jackson and, Kool and the Gang and all that stuff. So that was an early, entry into singing. And I just found that I had, a knack for it. And I had a high school teacher, my high school drama teacher had a semi-professional theater company outside of the school where he paid young kids from surrounding colleges to come in and perform. And I got involved in that at a very early age and started performing a lot. And I don't know, I just loved it. I love to sing and I love to tell stories through songs. So
is that where you learned to dance too? Because we don't see a lot of it in A Bronx Tale because Sonny is just.
Yeah.
But I know you can dance.
Well, I had my father was Costa Rican, so I used to go to a lot of Latin dances when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
And they were like young, hip parents, so they take me to like dance clubs, and I just hang out in the corner with the babysitter while they went, had a good night, kept it fresh. But no, I've always loved to dance. I'm a musical guy, so I've always loved that. But I wouldn't call myself a trained dancer. I'm no Tony Yazbek, that's for sure.
Well, you sure had some moments in Bullets.
Yeah, Susan Stroman definitely, she made me look really good in that number, that's for sure. Yeah. Along with those other great dancers.
Well, next time you come, I want you to bring your tap shoes.
I will.
We'll get it set up for that.
I'll show you what a novice I really am.
Oh, also speaking of Bullets, you worked with Zach Braff.
Yeah.
And I understand that you guys are going to be collaborating again coming up.
Well, we did. He's got a new movie called Going in Style that's coming out in April, and it's starring Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman and Alan Arkin. He was kind enough.
I've heard of those guys.
Yeah, those guys. And he was kind enough to give me a little scene with Morgan Freeman, and we had a great day in Brooklyn that day. And it's opening soon, so go check it out.
Yeah, that's great. What else is coming up for you? Just lots more Bronx Tale?
Lots more Bronx Tale. Yeah, it's we found an audience over there, so it's selling pretty well, and it looks like we're going to be there for a minute. So.
How much time do you spend off stage with your co-star, Bobby Conte Thornton?
Yeah, we live in the same neighborhood, so we hang out sometimes.
You guys just have such great chemistry.
Yeah.
And I actually, when I found out that you had been cast as Sonny, I was like, he's too young to play Sonny, because I think of Sonny as like this old guy, but you guys have such an incredible...
I've been told I read older on stage.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not sure if that's true, yeah.
Well, your posture and the way that you two interact specifically, but I imagine that in real life you have more of like a peer relationship.
Yeah. I mean, he's a young guy, he's a young 24 years old. It's his Broadway debut, but he's a great, very sweet, intelligent kid. So I love spending time with Bobby.
Do you remember seeing A Bronx Tale as a movie or on stage before you got involved?
Well, Chazz invited me to come see it in New Jersey when he was doing the one-man show when I first became involved in it. So that was my first time seeing that. But the movie, absolutely. I grew up with that movie.
Yeah. What's your favorite scene in the movie?
Probably the door test, which I get to do in the show.
Oh my gosh!
Which is a great scene.
Will you just, like in 2 sentences, explain the door test to people who might not remember Sonny's test?
Right. So in that scene that I was referring to earlier, C is worried about this girl, and he's worried about knowing if she's a great one. And I said, here's how you know: you drive up to the school, you get out of the car, you lock both doors, then you walk around and look through the rear window, and if she doesn't reach over and lift up the door and unlock the door on the other side, then you dump her on the spot. And you'd be surprised. There's people who show up at the stage door with their wives, and they, the guys turn to their wife saying, "You don't know this, but we're married because you passed the door test." And
somebody did it to me.
Oh, really?
My first boyfriend, when I was 16, he pulled the Sonny test. I'd never seen the movie. I didn't know what was going on. I failed.
Oh.
But guess what? He didn't dump me. We stayed together anyway.
That's sweet. That's sweet. We got automatic locks now. So
I know. Yeah. Well, not to mention the fact that that's a convertible, and he could have just.
I know. Just hop right in. Dukes of Hazzard
didn't
style.
Actually. Yeah, but we'll let that go.
Yeah.
So that's great that you get to act out your favorite scene from the movie.
I love it. I love it. That's such a great movie. De Niro is so good in that movie, and it was his directorial debut, as many people know. He was so good, in fact, that when it first came to my attention that they wanted me to play Sonny, I was a little hesitant just because I was playing Chazz Palminteri on Broadway as a gangster at the time. And so, I was very honored, but it was like, oh man, am I repeating myself? And so I initially asked about Lorenzo because I thought that De Niro was so good in the movie, and but they said absolutely not.
Do you know the story of how De Niro got involved with A Bronx Tale, or how the movie got made, I guess?
Yeah, well, I heard that he saw it off Broadway 19 times.
Jeez.
And
super fan. I mean, he's giving me a run for my money
Right.
in terms of like super
you got
fandom.
some work to do, Laura. No, but this was at a time when Chazz was, the hot commodity. I mean, everybody wanted to make this movie, but they just wanted to do it without him, and they wanted someone else to write it. I think Nicholson wanted to play Sonny, and Pacino, and all these guys were lining up to do it, and the studios really wanted to get it done. And I think the story goes that with $300 in his pocket, or $300 in his bank account, he turned down $1 million check. These studio guys were like, you take this check, you won't be in it or write it, but you'll have $1 million, and now you have 300. And he said no. And had he taken that check, we might not know who Chazz Palminteri is. So,
but then De Niro came along and
then De Niro came along and said, I think it's a great story. I'd like to direct it, and I want you to play Sonny and write it. And, they shook hands, and that was that.
And he also said, from my understanding of the story, he said, and I'll put myself in it too, because I'm famous enough that people pay attention.
Right.
Because I'll lend the credibility of my name and reputation to this project.
Absolutely.
That's being helmed or, fronted by an unknown.
Absolutely. And thank God he did. He's so good in that movie.
And I love that so much of that. I love that De Niro is still involved, that Chazz is still involved. Yeah. These guys really are the heart of the show.
Absolutely.
And then you guys get to be the face of this story and bring it to light in a whole new way, even for people who already know it.
It's not often that you become part of a legend, you know what I mean? And that's taken on like an urban legend quality, that story. So I think it's important to both of them. You can see it, we saw it every day, how much they care about these characters and the story and the legacy, especially Chazz. It's his life story, and those are his parents on stage, So, they were very, very attached to it. Chazz still is attached to it. He's in L.A. right now shooting a pilot and calls every day. And, he's a wonderful guy to work for. I love him very much.
Bobby told me that Chazz took him up and they sat on the stoop together.
Yeah.
That it's still there.
It's all there.
And
the
that
church,
they go visit.
And, it's really cool.
We have time to take some questions from the audience if you're up for it.
Love to.
Let's
Absolutely.
do it.
Hey, Nick, what's going on?
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Big fan. Congrats on all your success and the show.
Thanks.
As an actor myself, I'm always curious to speak to other actors, especially Broadway actors, about what it's like when you first get to New York. That first year or two. What was your experience in sort of just trying to break into the biz? And do you have any advice for aspiring actors who are trying to do the same thing?
It was tough. Not gonna lie, I did not have one of those experiences where you walk in and get the job. I grinded for a long time. I'm Canadian, so when I initially got down here, I could be seen. The unions are cousins, the Canadian union and the American union, so I could be seen, but I wasn't legally able to work. So I was just trying to get known and have casting people know who I was. And
how does that work? That you can audition for something that you're not eligible to work on?
Well, if they love you enough, then they can help facilitate a visa process. And some people have gotten jobs that way. Me, not so much. But, it's like so many other actors. The more you fall on your face, the more you sort of learn what your style is and what is unique to you and what you bring to the table that others don't. And once you sort of get a glimpse of what's working in those rooms, you just press that, man. Just press it really hard because there's no other you.
Great. Do we have another question?
Hi.
Oh, nice hat.
Waitress.
You mentioned your character's advice in the musical about three great women, and I was wondering who are the three great women in your life?
Oh, well,
Present company excluded.
Present company excluded. I have a beautiful girlfriend named Amanda Klutz, who I love very much.
She's a fitness goddess. I just have to say, the Instagram is incredible.
I know. She's
the
blowing
jump
up.
rope stuff. I'm glad you brought her up because I didn't want to touch on your personal life unless you went there first. But now I can gush about her as well.
Go for it. Yeah, no, she's wonderful. She's got a workout called The Rope, and her name's Amanda Klutz, and you should take her class at Bandier. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but she just shot a 3-page spread in Cosmopolitan magazine, which is coming out in the summer, and so she's on the cusp. So definitely her, definitely my mother, and definitely my sister Amanda. Same name as my girlfriend.
Have your mom and the Amandas been to the show over and over?
Yeah.
And they're like, that's my boy.
They
That's my
came
guy.
opening night. Yeah, it was really exciting. And they got to meet De Niro and Chazz and Vinny and all the people in my life that I've been speaking to them about. And they had a great time.
That's great.
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I was wondering, what are some dream roles that you'd like to play on Broadway?
I've always wanted to play Sweeney Todd.
Ooh, yeah, I could see that.
But not unlike what's going on now off Broadway, but something, change it up a little bit, make it a little more modern maybe. Stanley Kowalski, Streetcar Named Desire. But I got to tell you, I really like doing new stuff. There's nothing like being in a room of intelligent storytellers and learning about how those things are made and how scripts are developed. And it's just great seeing an audience react to something they've never seen before in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I'm pretty blessed to have been working on some new work with some great people.
Do you feel like you want to maybe go softer at some point? Because I think about Sweeney Todd and Stanley Kowalski and the three roles you're best known for. Earl,
I know.
Cheech and,
honestly,
and Sonny. You're like, ugh,
I know.
I feel like there's some tenderness in there
Absolutely.
that I'd like to see. I'd like to see you do a romantic
I'm a good Canadian
lead.
boy.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I've always wanted to play Atticus Finch too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I think that'd be beautiful.
Definitely against type. Yeah, I'm ready to sort of get beyond the menacing gangster guy because I'm nice. I'm a nice guy.
Well, for now, you're doing an incredible job as
Thank
Sonny in A Bronx Tale. We're all just so lucky to have you on stage in this incredible show and to have the show playing in New York. I wish the show and you just incredibly long run.
Thank you.
And I really want to just thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time. Thanks, guys.